Okay, let's see if I am actually live. Let me check. Okay, I am. Hi, how are you? My gosh, it's been a minute. How are you feeling? How are you doing? I really am excited about my Ancestry DNA results and just kind of sharing the journey, sharing why I did it, kind of which thing I used, why I chose it, and really what that journey has meant for me. So, first, I guess I should start with why this is so important for me. Um, I've been on a journey of trying to understand who my family is, what my bloodline is, for a long time. Like, I think it was 13. When I was 13, I found out through a crazy series of events that my biological father had not necessarily been like a great person, I guess, for my mother and kind of how things unfolded. And yeah, so I found out who my biological father was, and partly was mortified as I learned more details, and then like overwhelmingly sad for a long time. So there was that, and I had already known who my mother was, and again, 13 was a very, very rough time for me, so I ended up, figuring out more things about my mother, and maybe I'll write about it at one point in my life, but it was a very crazy time for me, age 13, but it also awakened in me, like, all the things that I was curious about, like who was my family on my mother's side, who was my family on my father's side, like where did we come from, all those things that I think a lot of folks that do know kind of take advantage and don't realize the privilege really in that. So diving deeper into that history and learning about, my family being colonized on both ends and how colonization really affected even to the point of going into foster care, I realized that I was really going to have to do a lot of decoding and like trying to figure out who was my family before colonization of my African side and then colonization of my Indigenous side. And I had done a lot of like backtracking in history on my own and like, trying to follow the trail and like, okay, Mexico and Spain and all the things. But then like, is that really the research I need to be doing and all the things? Just a lot of just following the alignment and the divine guidance that I had, but also trying to figure out what was going on. So anyway, there's a lot to that, but essentially not even a couple of months, like I think back in October 2020 was really when I made the decision to try to look for different DNA services. So there's like Ancestry DNA, there's 23andMe, there's African Ancestry, and I think there's quite a few others, but those are like the top three that I was trying to figure out between. And so I looked at African Ancestry and Ancestry DNA, and then I started talking to different folks about what that really looks like and, has anyone got results? And so a lot of people actually use 23andMe, which I do plan on doing at some point, but I just wanted to start with something. And I did see, though, that a lot of these companies sell your information, sell your DNA, other things like that. But what they've added on now is this clause to opt out of it. So that's pretty much what I did. And then there's also African Ancestry, which I'll be doing. But the issue that I had there is that I know that on my mother's side is, mainly Indigenous. And because I myself am a woman, you can look this up as well. And I'm female, that would just reflect back on my mother's ancestry stuff. And so my father's ancestry stuff, I would have to learn through another male in my family, in my bloodline type of thing, or like my father, essentially an uncle, a brother. So I was like, I'm gonna have to put a pause on that because not speaking to my biological father at this time. And I do have a biological brother that I ended up finding and seeing. I don't know if the folks that are on, if you were able to see that, but you know, we ended up meeting randomly last year before the pandemic in February in the middle of the park, in the middle of the night. And it was such a beautiful experience because he's like 28 going on 29. And he just, it's so crazy. Like, we laugh similarly, we talk similarly, like our pattern of speech and our thought process is very similar. We never have met each other before that. Like, we never connected. And it was like, wow, like, it's crazy how much DNA does play a part into your development and who you are as a person. It's actually just crazy. So reflecting on that, I was like, it's like he's like my twin or something. But then I also, as many of you know that have been following me in this journey, found out that I have a younger sister and also a younger brother that I found out pretty much they got adopted in a closed adoption. So I'm not really sure like if I'll be able to find them in the next however many years. You know, I try to find them with their names before they were adopted, but nothing came up like TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all the things that most people their age and they're like teenagers, according to like when they were their birth date and stuff like that. So I'm like, okay, where is my little sister? You know, where is my little... It's a lot of stuff sometimes, like, I'll just think about day to day, where I'm like, I wonder where my family is, you know, I wonder what my siblings are doing. And they don't even know that I exist, you know? So it's a lot of, I don't know, like, mental stuff, too, that, like, I think about, and also going back to knowing the history of why this happened in the first place, you know, colonization and ethnocentrism, which is essentially this idea that like there's one right way to do things, and that has been a really huge driving force on how things ended up being how they are to this day, and also reflecting that in foster care, right? So anyways, I'm gonna share with you these results that I got. It just happened like yesterday. I got a notification. I was like, oh my gosh. And I got really, really excited because, like I said, it's been a journey, like really since I was 13, because I didn't know prior to that. I just thought I was like Mexican and I knew I was black, but like, what did that really mean? So, when I was 13, I started going more in depth into like, what was the history, like nationality, ethnicity, you know, learning about myself, learning about the people that I come from. So this should be very interesting. Let's see if I know how to share my screen. If not, I'll just do it on my phone. I don't know when my throat is like feeling weird now. Okay, yeah, I think I'm just gonna have to do it on my phone because I don't see a place where it says share my screen. Interesting. Okay, well, I'll do it on my phone. Let's see. This is going to be very interesting here. Alright, so Ancestry DNA. Oh yeah, so essentially what you do is they send you this box. I think it was like 90 something dollars, but I got 50% off, so it was like $50. And at first I thought that was a lot of money. Then I was like, you know what, let me put like $10 here, $20 there, and if I still feel like I want to get it in like 3 months, then I'll do that. And it worked out that way. So let's go to the records. Actually, not the records. Yeah, I think it says DNA story. It's loading. I think I'm just going to go back to the link that I was on because I remember now that that app is not the best. It does the most. Okay, so we're going to go to the home page here, and then you can see the hold on. How do I do this? It's mirroring. Okay, so what in the world? Stop doing that. Okay, so it says, okay, there we go. I don't know if you can see it. It's kind of blurry. That's annoying. Okay, well, it says 26% Indigenous Americas, Mexico, 21% Nigeria, 14% Spain, 12% Cameroon, Congo, and Western Bantu peoples, and then 27% other regions. And I thought that was very interesting because the highest percentage that it's having right here is 26% Indigenous Americas, Mexico, right? But 27% other regions. And it's just like a gray circle, which is why I'm going to do the other DNA tests as well and kind of like fill in the gaps. But so interesting how they categorized everything. So we're going to go into the map part of it, and I don't know if you can see that. Yeah, okay, so it says 26% Indigenous Americas, Mexico, Sonora, Mexico, and southwestern Arizona, and then Sinaloa, and northern Sinaloa, and southern Sonora. Very interesting, okay? And I'll say why, because when I was like in 5th grade, I dove really deep into like the Mexican part of my family tree, and I was like, okay, my grandmother's from Mexico. She lived in adobes, which also was crazy, right? Because you only hear about adobes about like Aztec culture back in ancient civilizations, but it wasn't that ancient because my grandmother is still living, still to this day too, but also back then, and she was talking about creating an adobe with her grandmother, with her father, and my great grandfather, and that he was a medicine man. He cured people with herbs, and so herbs is very heavily in my life. Although my grandmother had to assimilate to American culture to survive, there was a lot of things that were wiped out, but she still remembers, and she shared and has shared, continuously sharing with me a lot of those things. So we also have Baja Peninsula and the Southern California coast, which is crazy again because my grandfather meaning my grandmother's husband, he talks nonstop about Baja California and how most of his family is from there, which I thought was just Spaniard, but it's actually Spaniard and quote-unquote Mexican, which is really indigenous. A lot of folks that believe and think that they are Mexican, right, you're actually indigenous. And that's the crazy part about it, is how this has actually solidified a lot of those things, apparently, through DNA. Things that I was like hypothetical and like doing my own research about stuff at 5th grade, you know, because I really wanted to know. And that's when I discovered where I was like, oh, I'm really indigenous, you know, because Spain kind of had their influence on Mexico, and then the U.S. kind of like, you know, the wetback operation, Google it, research it. But that was a huge part into that, as well as Hidalgo Treaty and the Guadalupe Treaty as well. So just check those things out. You'll see exactly what I'm talking about. It's really insane. So there's a lot of like little percentages and then bigger percentages pertaining to like the different countries on the African continent. So as you can see here, it's like, let's see, 21% Nigeria, 6% Mali, 12% Cameroon, Congo, and Western Bantu. Where's that? Benin and Togo. Hopefully I'm saying it right. You know, I am not a person that knows all my things. And geographically, I'm getting better, but mainly challenged. And then there's also Indigenous America Central, which I'm actually going to click on that one. Oh, wow. So it says, I don't know if you can see that, Belize, El Salvador, Honduras, Nicaragua. Very interesting. So my family was doing a lot of shifting and moving. Well, you know, some of it wasn't necessarily because they just were trying to go see different places. They had to fly and, you know, flee away from situations because it was so crazy. And something that I also want to say, because it says additional communities, early North Carolina African Americans, East Texas, Arkansas, and Louisiana, which is spot on because that's what I found out. My father's side of the family actually is from, and they actually currently live in those specific areas. But it's also where a lot of horrible things happened. Southeast North Carolina African Americans. So yeah, all the, like, what I will say is if you are of African descent and you're taking like an Ancestry DNA type of thing, I would say, and you know, like a good portion of you is African descent, like do what I'm doing where I'm just going to take this test. I'm going to probably do 23andMe, and then I need to find someone on my father's side, since that's where it comes from predominantly. So that way I can take the African ancestry and go deeper into like those particular tribes, because I think this is more so like a suggestion, you know. And I say that because during colonization and during the enslavement of my African ancestors, there were a lot of erasure of culture, erasure of identity, erasure of who you're related to, because it didn't matter, right? You're not human, so like why would you need that information? You know, you don't have a history, is what I've heard past white colonial historians say. So, you know, if you're Indigenous, you know, I'd probably say definitely Ancestry DNA, because it gave me like specific regions, which is really important and helpful, so that way I can dive deeper into that. Yeah, and so yeah, I do have some Spain, which I already know where that comes from, right? I talked about that. And I will also say this too. I used to have this really like disgust and disdain for anything other than like my Indigenous piece of who I am and African pieces of who I am, my black pieces of who I am. Anything other than that, if it was like European or other thing, I felt very like no, because you know how I know more than likely that came to be. A lot of the whitewashing of culture, a lot of the erasure of culture, a lot of the like there's a specific way that things need to be done, and this is the only way. If you have your own cultures, your own practices, your own spiritual development and alignment in your own culture with your own people, then that's wrong. And even to the extremists, like that's evil. So now though, doing a lot of decolonizing of my mind, which is this idea of going back into self, into the humanness of it all, and also not generalizing everyone, which is so important. Like we don't want to say all people this or all, you know, certain types of groups this. Like that's very harmful to our evolution as human beings, but also our transformation and alignment into who we are as human beings, as an individual. So, you know, me having this 14% Spain here that's on my thing actually makes me wonder, like, other than the folks that were colonizing different places, who were the other people that didn't necessarily agree with that, you know? Because thinking about other events in history, everyone didn't agree with that going on, right? So who were the other people? What is Spain's culture outside of colonization and all the things that we know that I guess I should say. I was going to say I won't say, but yeah, like the raping, the lying, the stealing, the erasure, all the things. Like, what is Spain's culture out of that? What is Europe's culture out of that? Is there a culture out of that? You know, outside of that, is it different? Is there loving moments and beautiful elements? Like, I have never been exposed to those things. I only know unfortunately the very negative sides in history of Europe, and Spain's a part of Europe. So, you know, just really trying to learn that. What was my indigenous language before colonization? Like, you know, it says Sonora, Mexico, Sinaloa, Baja Peninsula. Again, so like, you know, what was my indigenous language before that? What was my traditional African language? And, you know, what was that specific, or it says Nigeria, but, you know, what was that before now, which a lot of folks in Nigeria and Ghana, West Africa, speak English or French or both. But, you know, we speak the language of the person or the group of people that colonized the land. So what was our language before that? And how did this end up being to, you know, what it is now? So anyways, lots of questions, lots of things, lots of like, okay, what is this? Why is this? I've always been that kind of person. And as a kid, I was why did this happen this way? And why, blah, blah. That's a scientist in me. But yeah, those are pretty much my results. I have Ivory Coast in Ghana, European Jewish, 2%, England and Northwestern Europe, 2%, Senegal, 1%, Iran, 1%, Portugal, 1%. Very interesting. Scotland, 3%. Yeah, this has been a journey. Like I said, I tried to find out these results since October last year, and I just got them in last night, and I was just like, what? Okay, most of it I did know, but I want to go deeper into, since I know clearly the Indigenous Americas, and also that's another really cool thing. Oh, I forgot to say. Oh my gosh, this was crazy. The matches of people that came up. Let me find them. DNA matches. Crazy. So this is some of the matches here. Like, who are all these people that I have DNA matches with that are just walking around in life? Who are all these people? Okay, like, that's a lot of people. A lot of them say father's side, fourth cousin, third cousin, fifth cousin. Like, I got a lot of cousins, okay? I got a lot of cousins, so I'm gonna have to reach out and I'll let you all know what happens with that. But I'm definitely gonna reach out and be like, oh hey, we matched on Ancestry DNA. Who's your mama? Who's your dad? Who's your aunt? Crazy. Yeah. So, whew, I'm gonna be decoding that for probably a couple of months, and then before this year is over, I'm gonna go ahead and do 23andMe, because I think they also help with like, it helps with like health stuff, so you know like what you're allergic to, which a lot of things would help me a lot, since, as I said before, through colonization, a lot of things were affected. And one of those things was and is gut health. You know, a lot of us that are people of color, especially, that were given, you know, very low resources, very low quality food, other things, the worst off land, Indigenous and people of color, Africans, African descent, our gut biome is completely changed. And essentially, our gut biome is like craving crap and junk, because that was what we were fed. And it fundamentally changes our DNA and the way our body literally communicates with itself, DNA wise, because of how things have shifted and changed, and what we were forced to endure for so long, you know. And even still currently, I would say, under this capitalist structure, there's a lot there. So for me, it's a lot of the decolonizing mind, body, and spirit, and kind of reprogramming my physical body cells to crave healing foods. And that's a whole other video for a whole nother time. So anyways, those are my results. Really crazy. Would love to hear if you have done Ancestry DNA or 23andMe or African Ancestry, any of those things, how that went for you. Like, please message me. I'm so here for it. I want to hear how it went, how it's going, because this is just an ongoing process. And yeah, thank you for listening and being on here. And I will be back with another update probably soon about this specifically, probably soon. I just have to like process everything that's been going on, and like how amazing like this ended up becoming, and what this really even means for me. So thank you, and I will talk to you all soon. Peace.